God is not a liar. His promises are true. In our psalm, we said, "The words of the Lord are faithful, and his works are to be trusted." And I think if you go through all of the scriptures, and if you focus in on one particular phrase, you'll find a lot of things. And that phrase is this: the Father speaking through prophets, through word, through law, through covenant, through his Son Jesus, the words of "I will." So in a lot of the Old Testament, what the Lord is saying is, I will do these things. And there's this anticipation of seeing what it is that God is going to do. And ultimately, the "I will" that the Father speaks is fulfilled in his Son Jesus. And if you look at the words of Jesus, Jesus is not a liar. And Jesus, in many places in the scriptures and the gospel, says the particular phrase of, "I will. I will make you fishers of men. I will give you rest. I will feed you. I will appoint for you shepherds after my own heart. I will raise you on the last day. I will, I will, I will." And so there's this sense, like, as we look at those promises of the Father through his Son Jesus, of like an eager anticipation of wanting those promises to be fulfilled. God, you said you will, I'm ready. A beautiful promise is made in our gospel here today. Because I think a lot of the promises, if you focus both Old Testament and even the promises that Jesus make, they're very much oriented towards action, of God saying, I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to provide for you. I'm going to give you the advocate. I'm going to give you the Spirit. But the promise that Jesus makes today is important, and it's important for us to look at. I will come back again and take you to myself, so that where I am, you also may be. The promise that's made is not just simply a promise of action, but it's a promise of relationship. And what Jesus is promising us is this sense of, I promise that I will be with you. I promise. And we look at the beginning of this gospel, and context matters. Like, this is right before the Last Supper. There is a lot of anxiety within the disciples' hearts. Things are turning up in Jerusalem, and they know, like, gosh, things are happening. And so what does Jesus first say to them? Do not let your hearts be troubled. Like, that word that's spoken was not just spoken in the upper room 2,000 years ago, but like, that word is spoken here today. It's not that Jesus said, do not let your hearts be troubled. Jesus is saying, do not let your hearts be troubled. And there's a lot of reasons for us to have our hearts troubled. Like, particularly globally, you look at wars that are being waged all over the place. You look at like different situations within family and brokenness within relationship. But like, particularly, like, we know the things that trouble our hearts because we experience it. And I think our thought is that like when the Lord looks at those places in our hearts of brokenness, of pain, of hurt, of anxiety, of troubledness, that like we want God to fix us. Take it away. Like, here, take this situation, take my brokenness. But ultimately, God is not just Mr. Fix-It to say, oh, I will take this away from you. How does our anxiety, how do our fears, how do our troubles, how do our despair, how is it transformed? But him saying, I will be with you in that place. I will take you to myself so that where I am, you also may be. Essentially, what Jesus is saying is like, wherever you are, that's where I want to be. I think we live with the illusion that like sometimes our lives as Christians is like, I need to figure my life out, I need to get my life together, and then I'll go to God, and then I'll be worthy of his love. Look how great everything is. No, I will take you to myself. That I'm going to come to you and draw near to you, particularly in those places of immense pain, of brokenness, of anxiety, in those places that you don't want to be and you don't want me to be. That's where I want to be. Why? So that I can provide for you in that place. Not by acting, but through my presence. And I think for us to like see and to know that those anxieties, those fears, those places in our hearts that we oftentimes despise, God does not. And ultimately, like, it's not the desire of Jesus to fix us and to fix those places in our hearts. It's the desire of a God of infinite love and mercy to draw near to us in those places and be with us. Emmanuel, God with us. And that term Emmanuel like didn't just happen in Bethlehem, it didn't just happen in Jesus, like that happens here. So that where I am, you also may be, and also where you are is where I may be. That I may be with you in the joys and the struggles and the pains and all these different things. But I think also to see that sense of like the promise that Jesus is making is a promise of like relationship, but it's also a promise that isn't just simply going to be fulfilled. I think when we hear this particular reading, we hear about the Father's house and we think, oh, well, that's heaven. I'll go there. Yeah, what is heaven? It's us living in union with God and God living in union with us for all eternity. But what is Mass? It's us living in union with God and God living in union with us in this life. That like the promise of heaven, of what we will experience for all eternity, is fulfilled, yes, to come, but like that's fulfilled here. What happens in Mass is this. Jesus says, where you are is where I want to be. And so guess what? I'm going to draw near to you and give of myself to you so that within the Father's house there are many dwelling places, but also like within the heart of each and every you, we become a place in which God dwells. We hear from 2 Peter, living stones, royal priesthood, that the church is built up not just simply in building, not just in structure, but in each and every one of us. That we become the dwelling place of God as God makes his dwelling within us, as we receive him, as he enters in. It's like the Eucharist that we receive, it matters. Because what is happening within the Eucharist is God is fulfilling promises. I will be with you. How's that going to happen? This is who I am, given up for you. Now receive it. Take it in. Like it's a beautiful thing to see like how this is happening. And I think more and more that like as we see how this is happening and how God is providing for us with his body, with his blood, with the sense of relationship and the sense of being, like it should spurn our hearts onward to say like, I want more. And that more, like certainly I want to keep coming to you, Lord, but like I want heaven. What I love is that, like, I think a lot of times we look at the desires of our hearts and we think that, like, they're in conflict with what God wants. Like, God wants this, I want this, boom, it comes together. But, like, there's this beautiful sense of, like, Philip going to Jesus and saying, like, show me the Father. Thomas, I don't know where I'm going, show me this way. And what does Jesus want to do? He wants to show us the way to the Father, and he wants to reveal the Father's love for us in a beautiful way. So why do you come here today? Because you want to know that the Father's love is real. You want to know that God cares. You want to know that God is present amid all that is going on, that you are worthy of his love and that you are worthy of his presence. And why does Jesus come to us today? Because he wants to show us the Father. He wants to show us the way. He wants to show us that he is the truth and that his promises can be trusted and that in following Jesus, the way and the truth, our lives are enlivened. So there's this beautiful sense that like, while this was spoken, this is being spoken. In a place of great love, the Father looks at us once again and says, do not let your hearts be troubled. Have faith in me. You can trust me. My promises aren't empty because within my Father's heart and within the Father's house, there is room for you. There are many dwelling places. And Jesus here today prepares a place for us in what is received here, but also, too, he goes before us to prepare a place within the Father's house that is heaven for all eternity, so that what? So that we can be with him. And so what is celebrated here today is ultimately the fulfillment of a God of promises. That God promises, I will take you to myself, that where I am, you also may be. Faith is us not just simply going to God and ascending to all these things, but it's us having the willingness to respond to the invitation of God. How are you here today? Because the Father invited you here, so that where you are is also where I can be. But not just simply that like recognizing that like he desires to draw near and to walk with us. Where he is going, we know the way. That way is the way of the cross. But ultimately, it's that we don't just simply make this journey alone, but he says, I walk with you. Where you go, I go. Where you move, I move. And so for us to see our God fulfilling his promises here today, as he once again promises us this, I will go and prepare a place for you and come back again and take you to myself so that where I am, you also may be. Where is the Father? He's here. Where are you? Coming here today with a desire for him to be with you. So may that promise be fulfilled in what is celebrated here today and in the way in which we continue to live our lives as we follow Jesus Christ, the way, the truth, and the life, who desires to draw near to us and who very simply desires to be with us.